Good evening. This is a brand new week of Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Our big focus tonight in the run-up to Arun Jaitley's budget on Thursday, the economic survey confirms what we've been talking about for a while, that there is rural distress and urgent steps are needed to address it. What can the government do for farmers? That's our big focus on NDTV today and on the programme tonight. Also this evening, the communal tension in Uttar Pradesh's Kasganj. Will this only simmer more in the run-up to 2019? Will India ever come out of the cycle of communal tension? We'll talk about that in just a bit. But first, the big story today is the economic survey that was tabled in Parliament. It says that the economy should grow between 7 to 7.5% in the next fiscal year starting the 1st of April. For this fiscal, the economic survey sees GDP growth at 6.75%. That's ending on the 31st of March. The survey says that a series of major reforms undertaken over the past year will allow real GDP growth to rise. Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramanian, who's prepared that survey, says that growth is reviving. It says that the launch of the GST, the resolution of long-festering bad loans under the bankruptcy code, the implementation of a bank recapitalization package for public sector banks, and the further liberalization of foreign direct investment will lift GDP growth. However, the economic survey has flagged risks from rising oil prices and more. Mr. Jaitley will be presenting the budget this Thursday.
We see now that there is a robust and broad-based revival. Several indicators of activity. We've shown manufacturing growth, GVA growth, even investment, exports, net private transfers, credit. They've all started to pick up. The direction is very good. The level is still below potential. Should keep that in mind. But in terms of directionally, the economy seems to be picking up quite nicely, quite robustly.
देश की मौजूदा अर्थव्यवस्था पर बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ हैं कॉमर्स मिनिस्टर सुरेश प्रभु। शुरुआत में राष्ट्रपति ने कहा अपने भाषण में कि थोड़ा स्लो डाउन हुआ था, बाद में रिकवरी हो रही है अर्थव्यवस्था की।
ठीक है, तो जरूर हम दिखाई दे रहे हैं, सब चीज़ में रिकवरी हो रही है। इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन बढ़ रहा है, हमारे एक्सपोर्ट्स में भी वृद्धि हो रही है, हमारे इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में भी वृद्धि हो रही है। हमारे अब लगातार हम देख रहे हैं कि बिजनेस कॉन्फिडेंस इंप्रूव हो रहा है, एफडीआई में इंप्रूवमेंट हो रहा है, तो इकोनॉमी काफ़ी अपस्विंग पे है। तो आने वाले दिनों में और भी उसको हमें सुधार दिखाई देगा। 2018 साल की आर्थिक वृद्धि का दर जो है वो जरूर 2017 से अच्छा रहेगा।
The economic survey has just been tabled, and with me, Congress leader Gaurav Gogoi. One of the interesting things is that the Congress, the opposition, made a huge issue about the GST, but the economic survey actually says that it helped the economy.
See, if you look at the impact the GST has had on small, micro and medium industries across the board, our experience have shown that this government, through its faulty implementation, has only dampened the growth of the small, micro, medium industries. This economic survey also points out that their oil prices are rising, and that's going to be a risk for this country. And I think that's what really pinches the Indian consumer, that when oil prices were at a record low, this government chose not to pass on the benefits to the consumer, to the middle class, to the women. This government has underperformed 7.5%. While it's good that it's a recovery, but it could have been much more had the government followed strong economic policies and not allowed itself to get into sudden economic measures like demonetization or a poor implementation of policies such as GST.
Well, what we're really going to focus on tonight is rural distress. Now, according to the economic survey, the agricultural sector is expected to grow at 2.1% in 2017-2018. It was 4.9% in 2016-17. So you can see that that number, as far as agricultural growth is concerned, has come down. It will come down. And that's very obviously reflected in evidence on the ground as well. Let's just take a look, in fact, at voices from across the country, farmers from different states who've been talking to us about the kind of problems that they're facing, why they're not getting the kind of money that they had hoped to get, the prices that they had hoped to get for their produce, and what they really want from this budget.
The countdown to the budget has begun, and farmers across the country have great expectations. Potatoes at 4 rupees per kilogram at this mandi in Uttar Pradesh's Barabanki. A glut in potato production in UP, farmers dumping it on roads. The Yogi government last year announced a subsidy of 50 rupees per quintal and also 75% of the transportation cost to farmers. But marginal farmers have no idea about this scheme.
जानकारी नहीं, बस यही तो भाई और दिक्कत है। स्कीम निकाल दें, लेकिन मतलब यहाँ तो कोई बताने वाला भी होना चाहिए, तभी तो काम होगा।
Now, the Uttar Pradesh government actually says that in 2017, 13 lakh metric tons or 1/10 of Uttar Pradesh's total produce of potatoes were actually sent out to more profitable areas. But here's the catch. Farmers managed to send just 1% of that number. 99% was sent by middlemen.
In Haryana, similar distress tales. Last year, heavy rains destroyed Tejpal Chokar's wheat fields, but his crop insurance didn't help.
वो 15 दिन बाद आए। 15 दिन बाद तक जब तक पानी सब खत्म हो चुका था, तो धक्के खाने के बावजूद भी हमें कुछ नहीं मिला। हमारा नुकसान हुआ कम से कम 60-70 हजार रुपए का।
Despite a mandatory crop insurance scheme, farmers have got little help.
हमें ये नहीं पता है कि बीमा करने वाली कंपनी कौन है। पिछली बार मेरी जीरी की फसल खराब होगी, लेकिन मैं किसके पास जाऊं? क्लेम किससे लूं?
For Haryana's farmers, losses due to crop failure add to the economic stresses of high input costs, poor electricity supplies and a lack of subsidies and loan waivers. They hope that the new budget will give them better crop prices and insurance to help save their farms.
And it's not just conventional farmers who are stressed. Shyam and Deepa from Bengaluru are yoga teachers, but this is their home. A small 1.5 acre organic farm in Tamil Nadu's Krishnagiri district. Organic farming for Shyam is about passion, not profit.
The avocado farm gate price per kg is something like 50-40. Okay. It doesn't cross 50. Yes. But the gourmet store sells at 300-400 rupees. Wow. So where does the money go?
There are little or no incentives for the organic farmer.
At the most they will do is they just subsidize little more the urea or factum force. Yes. Tractor and the urea is not the only contributor to the farmer's life. There is so many other factors that goes into a farmer's day-to-day life.
Will the finance minister sow seeds of hope and end farmer distress? Bureau Report, NDTV.
Well, is rural distress actually far worse than what is even being reported? Has the economic survey really captured the depth of the crisis? Joining us on the program tonight is Yogendra Yadav, the head of Swaraj Abhiyan. Arvind Virmani, the former chief economic advisor, is with us. Abhijit Sen, former member of the Planning Commission, is with us tonight. Mohan Guruswamy from the Centre for Policy Alternatives Society, and Mahesh Vyas of the CMIE, who's been doing a lot of work, in fact, on employment numbers, and those are interesting. We'll talk about those as well in just a while. Abhijit Sen, to you first. Do you think that as far as rural distress is concerned, that the economic survey has been able to capture the extent of it?
Well, the economic survey, at least in the first part, which is written, the first volume, which is written by the chief economic advisor, takes a very long-run view of agriculture, relates it to climate change, warns about the problems of climate change, which it says are very real, and essentially says that we must have a long-run policy in terms of diversification, moving to high-value crops. Now, that's a very long-run view. It's a valid view, and as he points out, we must do everything to increase incomes, including reducing the dependence on agriculture of the population. In other words, create jobs elsewhere. But this is a very long-run, valid thing. It doesn't give you much clue about what's going to happen either about this year or certainly not in the budget.
Okay, so as you said, long term it's a good view. What you're saying, it doesn't really give you a vision for the short to medium term. You don't know about this year and the next couple of years, about where we're headed.
Yeah, but in a sense, I don't expect it. In a agriculture is pretty slow-moving stuff. I mean. All
right, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yogendra Yadav, what did you think? I mean, Do you believe again that it does give you a good long enough perspective, or did you get a sense of what the budget might do for farmers this year?
First thing first, Nidhi, I really thought this is an honest document, more honest than most government documents are these days. At least it's not a mouthpiece of the government, which is not what you can see about most government publications, and unfortunately not about much of the media either. So I really like the document. In addition to what Professor Abhijit Sen said, I also read a couple of more things in the document. One, it acknowledges the fact that in the last 4 years, farmer income has been stagnant. Now, put it in contrast with all these claims of doubling the income of farmers, etc. Here's an official document that says there's virtually no growth in the income of farmers in the last 4 years. Second, it gives some short-term warnings and alerts for this year. Sowing is low, rural wages have declined, and the third thing is that prices have not done well. Despite low production, farmers are receiving prices which are lower than MSP. And then, of course, it gives a long-term warning and it quantifies it. What it says is that due to climate change, Indian farmers are likely to lose anywhere up to 25% of their existing incomes. Now, that's a very serious alert. So if I take this entire thing in its totality, of course, like Professor Sen, I would have wished them to say something about how to supplement farmers' income in the short term. They do not do so. But the message that comes out from the economic survey is something urgent, something radical, in their own word, needs to be done to improve farmers' income. That, to me, is the central message for the budget, which we can relate to whatever has been happening in the country in the last 6 months or so. Farmers are agitating. Farmers held this huge Sansad in Delhi, and what they want is fair and remunerative prices. So just to give in bullet points what the farmers would expect on this front is, A, the method of calculation of minimum support price of cost should be changed. 2, the government should add 50% to the renewed cost, revised cost, and offer that as MSP. 3, it must not be limited only to the 24 crops as of today. And 4, every farmer must be at least given the benefits of MSP. And at the moment, not more than 10% farmers actually get MSP. So that should be the priority of the budget. That's the message I picked from the economic survey.
All right. Well, Dr. Arvind Dhirmani, there has been a lot of speculation, and even the finance minister has hinted in some comments that he's made that this budget actually might be paying a lot more attention to farmers than previous budgets. You have the government going into election year. You have key state elections this year, the Lok Sabha elections due next year. So what do you think, the method would be to address all these issues that have been raised? Are farm loan waivers going to be the way to go? Can we afford to do that? What do you expect?
So the problem has to be separated into 2 parts. One is the short medium term and the other is medium long term. In the short term, you have to remember that we had 2 consecutive droughts. What follows from that is something which is not a mystery. I have dealt with the previous case when we had 2 successive droughts. I was in government at that time, and it has some very bad effects. It affects the rural savings, it affects their consumption, it affects real wages, it affects everything. Okay, so there are things which follow from these 2 droughts and the disruptions. There's no doubt that some of the actions taken by the government, like demonetization, etc., did cause further disruption in the recovery, actually, because we also know from past historical analysis that generally it takes 6 months to a year to start recovering. So one is this short-term distress, as everybody has called it, and I expect that there will be some programs or so more budgetary allocations in one form or another. Either the programs they have started in the last few years, there's talk about the Madhya Pradesh model, and there's some other models from Kerala and Tamil Nadu, etc. There are bound to be some short-term expenditures to alleviate that problem. But that is not going to solve the problem of income and productivity. That requires fundamental change in the policy, both the central and state government policies on agriculture. And just doing the same thing as we have been doing, there has been no fundamental reform of the agricultural structure for 50 years. And I am doubtful whether any deep reforms of agriculture will be announced in the budget speech.
Well, and that would certainly be a more long-term view. But Mohan Guruswamy, when the government says that it wants to, or it's going to double farm income by 2022, is that even possible? I mean, there are some people, I think the Congress has tweeted just a little while ago saying that that would mean a growth of 12% a year for 6 years in order to achieve that. Is that an unrealistic target?
It's absolutely unrealistic. It's just not feasible because the problems are compounding every day. You see, you've got to not only see the increase in number of farmers, but in fragmentation of holdings. The average size of a farm today is 0.83 hectares. And 85% of farmers are subsistence or small farmers. How do you get their income up? You have to, therefore, farmers traditionally have alternate jobs also on the side, and they supplement their incomes on that. So capital expenditure in rural area has stopped completely. Nothing happening. So they're all back in the villages doing nothing. So I think you've got to factor all this in together. And you start now, then you step up your investment in irrigation. For the last 20 years, we have not created a single acre of irrigated potential. That is, through government expenditure. Everything has come from tube wells. So you can't continue like this for long. And I think, Arvind Subramaniam writes very well, but I don't think he's really touched this in depth. And he should have touched this particular subject because it concerns almost 60% of the people. Prime Minister says, I'll increase double. It's a political statement. But it's very difficult. Even their procurement prices now doesn't take into account, the labor of the farmer. It puts it at 150 rupees a day, the labor of the household. If you raise procurement prices, then you'll have to sell wheat and rice at much lower price, much higher prices in the urban areas. Can they handle that? So there are lots and lots. This long-term solution he highlights. He says you've got to have less farmers on the same land.
Right,
and that is the long-term solution.
And as you're saying, you would have liked to have seen a bigger focus on this. Mahesh Vyas, let me just ask you on this whole point that is sort of being talked about in the long term of getting people to move away from agriculture and look at other sources of income. I mean, do you see that happening in the next 5-10 years? How do you see that playing out? But and I'm going to talk about the larger employment numbers with you as well. But where are those jobs going to come from?
Well, it's difficult to say what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. That's a little long term for us to be able to predict. But with respect to the economic survey and the budget, I don't see any indication that there is a focus or the required attention to agriculture, whether productivity or employment in agriculture sector. So the focus, like we have currently on, let us say, the bankruptcy code, we have substantial focus and commitment towards getting this twin balance sheet problem sorted out. And there is progress there. There's real progress there. There's similarly progress on GST. There is a lot of complication. There's a lot of angst around. But we are progressing in the direction of getting one GST across the nation. But if you merely say that we would like to double the income of farmers in some time horizon without having a clear plan to achieve that, that I think is not enough. So I don't think that there is any significant, relevant, concerted thinking in the direction of getting more employment or more productivity in agriculture, or moving people out of low productivity jobs in agriculture towards other jobs. So 5 to 10 years horizon is too far away. In the short to medium term, I don't think agriculture or employment away from agriculture is the focus that I see in this government's economic survey document.